For your Miscue analysis project, you're going to listen to a student read a piece of text to you. And then, while they are reading, you're going to note any kind of errors they make and compare those errors to the word that was actually on the page. This video is meant to help you in the analysis of their errors and to help you understand how Miscue supports you in making instructional decisions that support students in their learning. We are going to explore some of this through the exemplar by illustrating some of the key features of the exemplar and how the analysis supports the teacher to make the best instructional decision. The first place you are going to start is looking at what cueing system students are using at their point of error. As we look at the collection of these students' errors on this table, we can see that they are using a variety of cueing systems, as we kind of just skim here. When we look at the cueing systems, we want to ask ourselves, how much is the student using it, and are they using it completely or just in certain ways or certain cases? An example would be here at the top with excited. The student actually said excellent. One of the key things here to notice is that the student may have used all cueing systems at this point of error. It makes sense, it sounds right, and it looks right, which covers the meaning and syntactic systems. Visually, the student actually did use the system, but only partially. She only used it at the beginning of the word. As we look through the analysis, and as you look through the analysis for your students, you want to notice trends that students are doing. One major trend with this student with her visual cueing system when it is used is that she does not look at the whole word. You can notice here with had and has, she's using the first letters of the word in her visual cueing system, but she is ignoring the ending of the word. Same for worrying and worried. She's using the first letters, but missing the ending of the word as far as the visual system goes. Fall and fell. Here she actually is using that beginning and ending sound, but the error now is at the middle of the word. And you can see other examples where she does this. Snacks and sneakers, missing the middle of the word. Matt and Maddie's, missing the middle and the end of the word. Teddy and tummy, missing the middle sounds. And came and come, middle and ending sounds. When you are looking at the various cueing systems that your student is using, again, you want to think about trends. After you have done the initial analysis of what cueing systems your student is using at the point of error, you will want to make a summary in the table near the top of your document. You can see that this student had 7 uses of the meaning cueing system, 6 uses of the syntactic system, 14 uses of the visual system, and 27 total miscues. A common misconception here is that students are making meaning errors when you mark a meaning use. This is not the case. This means at the student's point of error, meaning when they use the wrong word, what are they actually using to try to solve that? Usually, when you look at this table and you've synthesized everything, you really want to target instruction in the cueing systems that the student is not using as much. However, it's not always that simple. You can see here that this student has used the visual cueing system most, which would make us think we want to target meaning and syntax the most. It is true that we want to really address meaning and syntax with this student, but if you remember at the top, we noticed the student is using the visual system, but mostly just for the beginning of words. She needs to be able to look through the whole word and really hone in on those middle and ending sounds. So there is room for refinement in using her visual cueing system. Once you have completed this table above and the summary table, you will already have a good idea of where you would need to target your instruction. You can see that in this exemplar under implications for further instruction, that this teacher really does focus on that. You note here at the top that she is saying the student relies heavily on the visual system, but she's only looking at those beginning sounds instead of the whole word. Then the teacher goes on to discuss an instructional strategy or two that would really support the student with this need. In this case, her strategies are to just make the student more aware that she's only using the beginning, to encourage her to look at the whole word, and to also use a technique where she can cover up the beginnings of some words so that the student will rely on the other parts of the visual or on other cueing systems. Remember, we said many times you do want to target the systems that the student isn't using as much. We want to kind of bring these into balance because as a good reader, we actually use all of these systems. So you'll notice in implications how this teacher also addresses how the student would be encouraged to use her syntactical system and the meaning system. One of the suggestions this teacher makes to help the student with meaning is to have her chunk and stop at the end of each page and do a retell, and to really ask herself if it's making sense and if she's comprehending what she's reading. If she doesn't, then she would have her go back and reread. Another great strategy to support meaning would be at the point of error to have her notice that it doesn't make sense and go back and start at the beginning of the sentence or another sentence and reread until it does make sense. You can see here that the teacher also addresses how she would support the syntactical system. Really, that syntactical system answers the question of, does it sound right? Oftentimes, the syntax system is a very unreliable cueing system for English learners, depending on their level of language proficiency. The teacher notices with this student that one of the places is verbs and the tenses of verbs and how that affects syntax. She discusses an instructional implication here with some language groups where they would practice creating language in the past tense, so that the students would have this language in their oral language first. Because we know if students have the language in their oral language, they are much more likely to be able to read it and make sense. Another piece that may help build syntactical knowledge is continuing to build students' vocabulary. Students understand how words work and make sense as they work more on that. Overall, as you complete this project, you really want to think highly about where do you see trends, just like this teacher did here. How will you support all of the cueing systems? And what would be some very specific instructional implications to move this student forward? If you need ideas on what some of those instructional implications might be, there is a great article linked in your agenda. I hope that this project helps you look deeper at students' reading behaviors and how you can really dig down and target instruction deeply.